The funky beat, yeah. He came up with the first song. I like that.
Sense of connection to the past, a subversive memory that constitutes wind at your back. You are who you are because somebody loved you, somebody cared for you, somebody attended to you. Make sure that love flows.
5 minutes to showtime.
To keep love on the one. Young folk, we love you. We know you can be grander than you are. And we know that the funk means it's not just about the fun, but decay. And decay is about knowledge. And the knowledge about courage. And the courage about service. And the service is about
I know that you have a book. Did you write a book? Yes, I did. Yeah, I definitely have to want to show that and discuss that. Because that, I know, so I'll be asking a question or two about this book as well.
So it describes racism as a trend.
Oh, okay.
So kids can kind of understand. Yeah. Kind of learn. Get rid of it, you know. Find education and awareness and all that kind of stuff.
You know you're going to have to scooch.
Yes, I know.
All right, ladies. This lady, introduce to you.
Okay.
If you have any questions or
Okay.
future references,
Oh, thank
let me know.
you.
Sorry for throwing that at you.
That's okay.
All right. So, Alkamar, we're going to stream live on the tablet.
Okay.
We're going to record as much as possible there. So, between the combination of the two,
Okay.
you'll be able to take a look at both angles and then decide which one you want to put on Facebook. I mean, on YouTube after we're done.
Cool.
We'll have two separate recordings of it.
Okay.
All right.
We're going straight through, rolling.
Okay, no problem. Your time is an hour.
Oh, and we're gonna we got a call in.
Okay.
We're gonna have a caller calling in too. Somebody I know, she at one point attempted to commit suicide as a teenager.
Okay.
And of course it was unsuccessful. She calling in.
Right.
But she's doing exceptionally well now. So she's got, a lot of successes in her life. She just won at the Apollo for her poetry and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted her to share a little bit of her journey as well with us.
That'd be great.
So she'd be calling in. I told her anytime after 2:20.
Okay. Cool. I see Jeannie coming in too.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Miss Lady, might just one other favor.
What's that?
Might just slide over.
Towards me?
Take your chair, yeah, slide towards underneath her. And I'll tell you when I'm going to stop. Because the arm is blocking your face.
Oh, okay.
Sit right there. A little bit more, actually toward the corner.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That'll be great. Thank you. Awesome. Yep, that's good right there. Appetizing Pepsi. All right, so you actually, I'm at the live button. Just don't say anything you don't want people to hear, but you can chatter.
Yes, sir.
It's not a problem. And then when you hear the music go up, come down. You come down, then you rub. Again, you hear some squeals here and there as I'm trying to level the sound for everybody. Just ignore it or get it straight.
We got to be careful with the words that we use. If we choose to be wounded healers rather than wounded hurters, we need words of encouragement, words of gentleness, words of kindness, words of ennoblement. And we want these young brothers and sisters of all colors somebody cared for you, somebody intended to you. Make sure that love flows to you. That's what it means to keep love on the board. Young folk, we love you. We know you can't be greater than you are. And we know that the funk means it's not just about the fun, but the K. And the K is about knowledge, and the knowledge about courage, and the courage about service, and the service is about sacrifice.
Oh, awesome.
Forget the words of the great Martin Luther King Jr., who said that love is the key that unlocks the door to ultimate reality. Let us understand the words of James Baldwin when he said, love forces us to take off the mask. We know we cannot live with them, but fear we cannot live without. That's the kind of love we're talking about. We want to affirm one another. We want to encourage one another. We want to uplift one another. That's why James Brown, George Clinton, that's why Aretha Franklin, that's why Theodore Pendergrass, that's why Bootsy Collins.
Welcome to the show. I am Alquamar. This is Miss
Hanifa. Hi guys.
We have a special show in store for you guys today. Today's topic is on teen suicide. As well as we'll be discussing other things as it pertains to our children in the community, racism and how to speak to your children about racism and police brutality. We'll be discussing that a bit. But before we get started, you know how we do. As usual, we go over the promos. So you know we are here at Everlasting Life, 9185 Central Avenue. And that is right inside the old Hampton Mall Shopping Center. All you native Washingtonians are pretty familiar with Hampton Mall, more so than the name of the shopping center now, which is Kingdom Square. And we're right next to 24 Hour Fitness. Everlasting Life is a vegan restaurant, all full vegan, that serves brunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Brunch on Sundays. You can get smoothies, you can get desserts, all types of soul food. But not only that, we do an array of different functions here. Different events. You can find something going on real exciting and bustling and lively almost every night. There's something different going on here as far as events are concerned. Here we are, as you see, we are in the eLife Media studio. So not only can you come and grab yourself a healthy meal or a tasty dessert, but you can also listen in on elifemedia.net to all the events and radio shows that are going on right here at the studio. If you like what you see and you think you have a voice that needs to be heard, or you sing or you perform or what have you, and you want to get the word out, the studio is for rent. So definitely just come to the studio directly, reach any of the engineers, call the Everlasting Life. You can find us easily on Google, and anybody here at the studio can assist you about rent space. We're gonna jump right in to our discussion today. We do have a special guest in the studio, Miss Deidre Sorrell. And if you guys are on elifemedia.net, you could see her. You'll see her and the whole studio and what's going on. But I'm going to turn this thing on Facebook Live around in just a second so you guys can see her beautiful face and her beautiful outfit. So, but yeah, I just wanted Miss Deidre Sorrell. She is a licensed professional counselor, Synergy Wellness. She's in therapeutic services. So she's going to be talking to us today about her expertise as it pertains to our children in the community. So Ms. Deidre, you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got started in the therapy sessions?
Okay, I certainly will. Okay, again, I'm Dr. Deidre Sorrell, and I have been providing counseling for almost 20 years now. I've been a school psychologist with DC Public Schools for almost 18 years. And as a school psychologist, of course, I've focused on children from grades K through 12. And I have my own practice, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. My practice is called Synergy Wellness Therapeutic Services. I'm located in Waldorf, Maryland. And I provide individual and I do some marital counseling, a little bit of family therapy with children and adults.
All right, cool beans. Okay, well, I'm going to keep the camera on you as far as Facebook Live, because they see us all the time. Yes. So, Ms. Hanifa, did you want to get started or ask a question of Ms. Deidre?
Well, my focus, I actually was hoping that we could touch a bit on teen suicide.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to start off just by how prevalent or is it in the Black community, would you say? And if it is it still considered a taboo topic within our community?
I would say that it's definitely a taboo topic, because for years, many people believe that suicide is something that Black people just didn't do.
Yes.
So this was sort of, suicide had the reputation of being something that was sort of something that people from other cultures did.
Yes.
But what's happening, and according to the statistics from the Centers for Disease Control, they're stating that teen suicide for African Americans is actually going up, and it's the third leading cause of death amongst young people. The third leading. So if you looking at the statistics back in 1980, what the statistics stated was that back in 1980, white people were considered the ones who committed suicide the most. And in terms of Black people, the rates were very low. Yes. And then when they did another study in 1993, they found that the numbers were rising, and that actually by 2013, that for Caucasians, their rates were actually getting lower. So this is something it's really a problem in our community, and I think that it's become a problem because there is a lack of awareness, and because there's such a stigma attached to having a mental illness and also having suicidal thoughts.
So within the African American community, what would you say are the top contributing factors to suicidal ideations amongst our teenagers?
You know, for someone to get to the point that they're thinking of suicide, one, there has to be feelings of depression, either diagnosed depression or undiagnosed. But when someone has depression, that makes them so much more vulnerable to committing suicide. So, and with depression, there are feelings of hopelessness and feelings of worthlessness. So, you know, with many of our young people, the world that they're living in now, with, you know, things such as racism, if they are dealing with low socioeconomic status, even social media can make children vulnerable to suicide. And I know that sounds really weird.
I can see why.
But you know, and I can't really cite any studies that support this, but when I grew up, there was no social media. Right. And what I had to do when I was young, I really had to kind of get outside and play.
Yes.
and just kind of be with nature
Yes.
and interact with people. So that was my interaction. If I wanted to see somebody, I went to their house and knocked on their door or something like that.
Right.
With many of our kids now, a lot of their associations, if they're not in school, they're talking to people virtually. So it's online, it's through social media, it's through texting. They're not even really talking on the phone that much.
Right.
And what that does is that takes something away from them. They're interacting, but they're not interacting truly. And as humans, we are built to interact.
We're social creatures.
We're social
by nature.
creatures. It's just by nature. And
Right.
it's not natural for us to interact virtually all the time.
Mm.
Now, the internet is a wonderful thing. Social media can be a great thing, but you have to have that balance. So I think that when young people especially are dealing with social media so much, if they are bullied socially, it can be relentless.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be relentless, and people, I've noticed online that people will say things like, if they get mad at somebody, go kill yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, people say that all
I
the time.
see that all the time.
And you know, back in my day, if I got mad at somebody, or well, not if I got mad at somebody, if people got angry, they would, you know, so we'll forget you, or
Leave me
you know,
alone. Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
I don't know, talk about your mother, I don't know, right? But go kill yourself was usually not said.
And another interesting dynamic I find is that most often when the conversations online get to that point, it's like most often people wouldn't talk like that to somebody else if they were in their face.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like that that
Makes it
buffer.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that buffer, because you're not, again, socially right there with the person. And you know, so you can say all kind of different things online that's more harmful than if they were in your face. You would think 2 or 3 times before saying it.
Absolutely.
But real quick, I just wanted to go back a little and read, because you did mention the CDC report, and I think we had got the same information. And I just wanted to read to the public a little bit about what they said. There's one quiet, overlooked threat that's begun to have a deadly impact on Black children: mental health stigma. The rate of Black youth committing suicide has never been higher. A 2015 study from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention found that for the first time, the suicide rate of Black children in between the ages of 5 and 11, this 5 and 11 family,
5-year-old.
had doubled between 1993 and 2013, while the rate among white children has declined. Suicides by hanging nearly tripled among Black boys in particular. These findings were so surprising to researchers that they spent an extra year reanalyzing the data just to double check themselves, only to find the same results.
So, and you mentioned the stigma, because when she mentioned depression, I was thinking the connection with suicide and mental health, and how mental health is one of those areas where there's this huge stigma and lack of education still in our communities. It's sort of like Black people don't get depressed.
Right,
you know,
right.
we deal with things and we move on. Do we really? You know, and yeah, no, we don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the cycles just repeat. Right now,
Right.
that blew my mind, that children 5
Yes.
to 11 years old are killing themselves.
Yes, 5.
Yes.
And the rates are getting higher.
Yes.
So this problem is getting worse.
It is.
Wow.
And it, you know, when I first saw those statistics, it was hard for me to believe it, but because I'm in private practice and I work with children, I have worked with kids who were 7 years old and suicidal and had attempted suicide. Yes. Yes. So it's real, and children know how to do this too. So parents really have to be aware, the community really has to be aware that this is a real problem.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted to get a little bit of more background information about you. What made you decide to be a counselor?
Well, when I went to college, I originally wanted to be a lawyer. And then I thought about it and I said, you know, I don't know if that's quite spiritually, if that's what I really want to do. And I found myself just sort of leaning towards psychology, so I changed my major from political science to psychology. And, you know, I just basically told myself, well, if I want to go to law school or something, I can always go there with a psychology background. It won't be a big deal. But by the time I graduated from undergrad, I really liked psychology, and I stuck with it and went to get my master's and worked in the field for about 12 years before I went for my doctorate. So I love the field. I love the field. It's a great field. I love helping people, and I love really being able to, you know, see someone progress and do better in life. You know, it makes my day. I love it.
Right, with your help. Right.
Yeah. No, she was talking about, she mentioned, you mentioned, Dr. Deidre, right?
Yes.
That parents need to be, the community need to be aware. But most of us don't even know what to look for, because we may see, depression looks different. And most people think depression is just this sad looking child. And sometimes it could be the child acting out.
Absolutely.
It could be the complete opposite. And so maybe that child is labeled as rebellious, you know, defiant, rude, you know, in our community, but they're really struggling with depression. Or that child who is self-medicating and all they do is smoke all day, you know. Right. And so what are some of the things that the community, parents out there, people who work with teenagers or young people in general, teachers, what can they look for? What are the signs?
Parents really need to pay attention and really make sure they know their kids. One thing, but basically the information states that if a child is talking about suicide, if a child is giving away their items, if a child is looking for the method to kill themselves, like if they're trying, getting on the internet and researching things, then those are warning signs. But those are signs that's what I found when I looked for information. And that's not always culturally relevant, right? So in my experience working with African American children, depression doesn't look like you said, it doesn't look like you would expect with the sad, kind of, low energy, crying and stuff. It's not that at all. It's the child who has an attitude. It's the child who's irritable. It's the child who has a very short attention span. And doctors typically get that confused with ADHD.
Yes, yes.
So as a school psychologist, I would get all these kids coming in with these doctor's notes stating that they had ADHD and needed an IEP, and that I was supposed to evaluate.
What is an IEP?
It's an individualized education plan, and what that really means is special education. So if a child has a disability or has ADHD to the point that it's impacting their academics severely, then they may qualify for an individual education plan, which is special education, and they'll get the services. In DC, they may get their behavior support, which is counseling, or so all of those services come in with an IEP or individual education plan. So what I noticed, it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm looking at the statistics of kids who have ADHD, and if it's saying, I'm just throwing out that, 10% of the population in the United States, 10% of children have ADHD, but there are 100 kids in my school with notes that say they have ADHD. Something is not right with the statistics here, right? Something is wrong. Many of those kids were suffering from depression, and doctors were overlooking it because they were exhibiting that inattentive behavior, and sometimes that really active behavior. They weren't just sitting slumped over in a corner like you would expect. So if you see that, parents know if their child has real ADHD or not. If you have ADHD, you have shown that behavior as a young child. That behavior has been there. But if something changes within your child, if something has happened in life, and that's when parents really need to be real with themselves. If there has been a loss, meaning if daddy has left, daddy's not around, grandma died, if something else has happened, with many of our kids are dealing with that, then there are going to be feelings of grief and depression. And
naturally. Because what comes to my mind is that when I was growing up, there was no such thing as no ADHD. And there were all unruly boys and girls in the classroom, and they were dealt with. And some of the troublemakers, if you can call them that, you want to call them that I grew up with, now they're they're doing just fine. Some of them running their own businesses and all that kind of stuff. So my mind goes to, what is this newfound 4-letter phenomenon that all of our children, a lot of our children have to be put on medications for things that children have always done throughout the land. And you know,
well, you know, and I've listened to many people who are knowledgeable about this on YouTube. I mean, in addition to my studies and my experience, but ADHD is a childhood disorder. It's very difficult. Well, you're not really supposed to get diagnosed with it as an adult. You have to be a child in order to be diagnosed. But if you